Hello and welcome back to the Weekly Crave. Our usual host, Dex, is unavailable, so I'll be filling in this week. Starting off with our first topic, the Netflix live-action adaptation of the Horizon games has been
canceled.
I personally like to believe this is because someone over at Netflix finally played the games, but unfortunately the situation seems to be far more sinister than that. Rolling Stone broke the news by revealing complaints from the Human Resources Department that held accusations of misconduct, harassment, and a general environment of toxic behavior and mistrust from showrunner Steve Blackman. Netflix has currently cancelled all projects from Blackman moving forward. Maybe they'll come back in the future with a new showrunner that hasn't been confirmed yet. In other live-action video game adaptation news, the Watchdogs movie has begun filming. After a whole decade of being in development hell, the project finally started filming and is in full production. So we can expect to hear news over the coming months, and we'll probably have a reveal trailer by the end of the year. But do you know what you don't have to wait for until the end of the year? The new PS Plus games, which just released. This month, users who are subscribed to any of the PlayStation Plus tiers can claim Borderlands III, a game with miserable writing, but don't worry, it's still worth playing purely for having some of the best first-person shooter gameplay. Just make sure you mute the dialogue anytime the Calypso twins start talking. We then have Among Us, and there's not much to talk about there, but if you haven't played Among Us since the boom a few years ago, there's some new game modes and some new rules. Lastly, we have NHL 24, which is just a sports hockey game. If you like hockey games, you already know who you are. If not, you can probably skip this one. Continuing with PlayStation news, PlayStation is returning to the Tokyo Games Show for the first time since 2019, an annual video game expo like E3 or PAX, held in Tokyo every September, which features both Japanese and international game developers. The last bit of PlayStation news is that their new game Concord will have its PC release require a PSN account, a trend that Sony seems to want to continue despite it meaning the game can't be sold on PC in over 177 different countries. They stated that this is for cross-play, cross-progression, and cosmetic-only microtransactions. Moving away from PlayStation news, the new Star Wars Outlaws game has officially gone gold, meaning the game is finished and in full production of its physical copy that will be shipped to stores. And Housemarque, the studio behind Returnal, is officially hiring new devs for their next AAA game. On to other topics, Nintendo's president was interviewed and asked about his thoughts on generative AI and its potential future use in Nintendo video games. To which President Shintaro responded that they will not be using generative AI within their games, as they have, quoted, decades of know-how, and don't want any, quote, issues with intellectual property rights. If there's any company that understands intellectual property rights, it's Nintendo. I mean, they'll sue anyone over their IPs. And I'd like to point out this is what is generated when I asked Microsoft's Copilot to generate an image of a cartoony Italian plumber. Now for some news distantly related to Nintendo, for once someone was arrested for owning a non-bootleg Nintendo product and for not stabbing people in the UK. A man was arrested and sentenced to jail for 4 months for simply carrying an 8-inch, 20cm replica Master Sword from The Legend of Zelda. He claims that he was using it as a fidget toy to keep his hands busy. Police, however, stated that it was a dangerous weapon. People all over the internet have come together to say, let this man go. As the vast majority agree, the man has done nothing wrong and committed no crime. Moving on, Xbox services were all down the other day for many hours, leaving many players annoyed. This also impacted the Minecraft community and angered Java players, with some stating that migrating to a Microsoft account maybe wasn't better than their old Mojang accounts. Final Fantasy's creator has stated that he no longer has any interest in returning to the Final Fantasy franchise, meaning that we might have gotten the Final Fantasy finally. The creator stated that he is excited to focus on new IPs. Battlefield has started following the trend of collabs and crossovers popularized by Fortnite with its many crossovers and collaborations. Battlefield now features a cosmetic outfit of Isaac Clarke, and a new zombie game mode, based on the Dead Space series. If you are interested and don't already own the game, it is currently on sale on Steam's big summer sale. Speaking of Steam and its summer sale, an article released recently which calculated the amount of unplayed games in people's libraries, calculating $19 billion. This number is an estimate based on the data provided by public profiles on Steam ID, which is only about 10% of its 730 million accounts. Redditors have also criticized the article for not taking into account if games were purchased at a discounted price or regional pricing, although I'll be honest, I'm part of the problem. What can I say? My body is a machine that turns Steam sales into unplayed games. And quickly before we end things off, let's talk about some upcoming games. Last week we missed a few, one being The First Ascent, a third-person co-op shooter, and then there's some of the new Nintendo Online games, some true classic NES games that you've never heard of, except golf, everyone's favorite sport and NES game. And lastly, next week, Kaku, Ancient Seal, comes out on all platforms except the Nintendo Switch. That's all for this week. Join us again next week where hopefully our usual host is back and we have more exciting news for you.